Welcome to the Hashimoto's Doctor Podcast. You're now part of a growing community of people determined to take their health back through education and self-empowerment. But because of the healthcare system today, we don't have access to the types of healthcare that we want. So we have to do things differently. We've got to do things smarter, and we do that by becoming our own advocates. This podcast will give you the perspective and thoughts of one of the world's leading Hashimoto's doctors. So let's get started. Hi everyone, Dr. Shook here. I hope you're doing well today. In today's podcast, what I want to talk to you about is a very important issue that we find is a major problem when I work with people clinically. So you guys probably know I work with about 2 to 4 new people per month. I only work with people that get very extensive testing because of my time teaching and developing self-help programs, and just a lot of the goals that I have are to change the world of thyroid management and to educate people to help them become their own advocates. And so I'm dedicating a lot of time to doing that. So we work with, one person every week to 2 weeks, a new person, and we do very extensive testing. Now, before I went to this model, we worked with a lot more people with a lot of different types of autoimmune conditions. As you guys know, I've dealt with myself several different types of autoimmune problems. I still, once you have an autoimmune condition, you never don't have it. It's just, if you can be non-symptomatic, non-expressive, then we call that remission. And I have Hashimoto's, I have psoriasis, I've had irritable bowel syndrome, I was diagnosed with ADHD at like 6 years of age. I've been through a lot of things personally. And, so part of my mission is to change the world one person at a time by educating you guys. That's what these podcasts really revolve around. And, but I do work with people, on a one-to-one basis, but it's just a lot more limited than it used to be. I used to work with, we would see several people per day, and it would be a much more, we would work with people that would do a lot more trial and error than people that would just do extensive testing. And it just really comes down to this. I don't have as much time to go through the trial and error process on working with people to peel the layers of working from, very limited information to try to help them get better. And it's not that you can't make great progress with people that way. You can. I've created self-help programs and things to help people try to figure that out and guide them where, I'll do weekly Q&As and things like that. But if when I work with people one-on-one, we're trying to really make significant changes as quickly as possible. So we get very extensive testing. And as part of that, one of the things that I always recommend is I recommend different types of micronutrient testing and, vitamin and mineral analysis. So, I've got a lot of experience looking at these types of tests. One of the things that we find clinically is that almost everyone that has an autoimmune problem and that is, symptomatic, that does not feel well, they almost all have significant nutrient problems. And so you start looking at this clinically and you say, okay, well, why does this person have all these nutrient issues? Does everyone have these nutrient issues, and we only see it in the people that don't feel well because they're the ones getting the testing? We don't know all that information. I can tell you for sure, though, that clinically, when you start supporting these nutrient-based issues, you can see some really significant positive changes happening in people's lives. And sometimes you just don't know what to do unless you have the data, the actual numbers. The numbers help you to determine what needs to be done, how much of a particular nutrient or how deficient someone is, so you can prescribe and recommend dosages appropriately. But in general, what we find is that almost everyone has nutrient-based needs that is autoimmune. I mean, I can tell you now they're deficient, and there are some minerals and vitamins that are very commonly deficient that I want to talk about. And so when you start asking why, now we'll get into those vitamins, those minerals in just a second, but when you start talking about why are people that have autoimmune problems deficient, well, it starts coming down to, why might they not be getting the nutrients in their food? And then why might they not be absorbing the nutrients, which are the two main things that I see, right? Those are the two primary problems. Is that, number one, there are a few problems with the foods. Number one, the foods that people are eating today don't have the same nutrient density that they used to have, because the farming practices have caused us to raise the same crops in the same soil over and over and over, depleting the topsoil of a lot of the minerals. So you don't get that in the food, so you don't get that in your body, and the food looks okay, it tastes okay, it has calories, but it does not have those micronutrients that you need. It doesn't have them in the quantities that it did, say, 50 or 100 years ago. And so those farming practices are creating, I think, a lot of problems, but how do you feed the world, right? So these are some of these are bigger problems, and that we have to think, how do we address these bigger issues? So that's one of the reasons, right? Depleted topsoil. And then the second thing is that a lot of people that have autoimmune problems, they don't absorb their nutrients well. They have very bad digestive tracts. They have lower stomach acidity than is needed to break down foods properly, so so they don't extract the nutrients well. They have poor enzymatic breakdown or enzyme production. A lot of people that I work with, I work with a lot of people that have autoimmune thyroid conditions, primarily Hashimoto's, and a large percentage of those people, it's more than the general public, they have celiac disease, or they have inflammatory bowel conditions. And when you have inflammatory bowel conditions, or you have celiac disease, the lining of the intestinal wall gets destroyed. The intestinal barrier gets broken down significantly. And if you don't know this, the lining of the intestinal wall is you have these cells called enterocytes, and enterocytes have these finger-like projections that stick inward into the digestive tract. They're called microvilli. It's really interesting. If you think of like shag carpet, shag carpet has those long shags. Well, that's what that lining looks like. It looks like this shag-like carpet, but it's these finger-like projections that come off of these cells that, between each of these shags produce enzymes. And these enzymes help you to break down food, break down carbohydrates, and so that you can utilize the food that you're eating. You can break it down into the micronutrients and that your body needs to produce energy and carry out normal physiology. When you have inflammatory conditions, when you have bacterial overgrowth of the gut, you have a bad digestive tract, when you have chronic constipation or frequent diarrhea, it's due to some problem. Something's creating that issue. And what we commonly find is that there are bacterial infections of the gut. There are chronic. So these are like long-term bacterial infections. There's fungal overgrowth of the gut. There can be parasites of the gut. There are inflammatory bowel diseases that are completely unknown to people. I mean, people that have Hashimoto's, a lot of them don't even realize they have celiac disease, and they do. So when you start looking at the reasons, well, obviously the depletion of the topsoil, and then difficulty with digesting your foods and absorbing the foods. You have a bad gut, you have poor stomach acidity, you don't have adequate enzyme sufficiency, maybe your gallbladder's been removed so you can't emulsify and break down fats and absorb the fat-soluble vitamins. You got major issues here. So when we start looking at why all this is occurring, well, most of the reasons are right here. This is why. So I very commonly see this in clinical practice. So what you've got to do is you got to say, okay, what can we do about this? How can we help this person to have an adequate vitamin and mineral status so that normal biochemistry can occur? A lot of people are really sick. They don't have good thyroid physiology. They don't detoxify well. They have all kinds of problems. Poor hormonal activity. They have really bad energy levels, high systemic inflammatory levels. They're anemic. They have poor blood sugar regulation. These are all things that can be tied to a lot of these vitamin and mineral based issues. So you say, well, how can we help people restore this? Well, what's the first question you've got to ask yourself is, why do you have the problems that you're having? Well, is it your diet's terrible? Is it that you have an inflammatory problem? Is it that you have some kind of infection? Is it that what is going on? What is it? Why do you what is causing your symptoms? And that's really where, you can do trial and error things. And there's value in that if you don't have the financial means with which to get the testing done that you need to have done. But my question to you is, I'm just going to tell you straight out, I've seen so many sick people that have lost time that they can never get back and quality of life that they'll never get back. And my question is this, it's like, my God, these people, they spend money on all these types of things that don't equate or give them an opportunity to live a better life. And I see this, and I see people that are at end stage, problems. They've got end stage diabetes, inflammatory autoimmune problems, and they come see me, and I'm like, I needed to see you like 10 years ago. That's what I'm thinking in my head. I'm always trying to figure out how I can help people. But you can't let things go so long that it's really difficult to get your health back, to make any changes. And you're going to spend money now getting testing to try to get your health back and live the life that you deserve to live, or you're going to spend it at the end of life or closer to the end of life with chronic degenerative problems, with the consequences of not doing the things that you needed to do to be healthy, to try and dampen the inflammatory processes. So you get my point here is this: get the testing that you need to get done to get your health as good as you can possibly get it. What are you waiting on? You can't get time back. And it's like, I don't know. I digress. My point here, really, I wanted to get into is that there are a lot of nutrients that need to be done. You got to figure out what's causing you to you've got to figure out what's causing you to not absorb the nutrients well. You got to figure out, are you not getting enough in through your diet? Is there a problem with your digestive system, with your digestive tract? Because this will contribute to a lot of problems that you're having. So you have to get testing done to figure that out. You can do a lot of trial and error approaches, and those sometimes can help, but really, how much do they really help long term? What are the ultimate goals here? So let me go through the nutrients finally, and a few strategies that I use. So the main nutrients that I see that are depleted are going to be iron, zinc, folic acid. Not folic acid. It's not folic acid is you want to look. Natural folates are critical, not synthetic folic acid. B12, calcium, selenium, all the fat-soluble vitamins, which have to be absorbed with fat, vitamins A, D, E, and K. And then iodine is a double-edged sword. You got to be real careful with your supplementation of iodine, but I often see that iodine is a major problem for people too. And people take way too much of it, and it can be a major issue for people that have autoimmune thyroid conditions, especially Hashimoto's. So these are some of the problems. Some of the strategies that we utilize and that I utilize when I'm working with people clinically are utilizing, temporary nutritional supplementation, a very, very good multivitamin, a very good strategy. But what I try to do is be as specific with people as possible. Get the testing you need to figure out, best of your ability, what is causing the problems that you're having. And that's what's going to give you the best chance to get your health as good as you can get it. So anyway, Dr. Shook here. Sorry about the rambling. Sorry about the ranting. Occasionally though, you got to ask yourself, what's this life all about? What are you waiting on? Because I see a lot of people that step over dollars to pick up pennies, and so what I mean by that is they put this price on some of they forego some of the things that could help them to have the best quality of life possible, and they opt for trial and error or don't do things that they need to do to give them the best chance to have their health back. So anyway, I hope this helps you guys out. Remember, it's my goal to help you be your own advocate, be better partners with your doctors. I want to change the world one person at a time. That means if I can help you, it will impact your family. That will change your community, and ultimately we're going to make a difference in this world. But I appreciate you hanging out with me. Sorry if I ranted too much. Look forward to talking to you guys on the next podcast. Thanks. Thanks so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed hanging out behind the scenes with Dr. Shook. You can also talk with and learn from Dr. Shook through Facebook Live on our Facebook page at the Office of Dr. Brad Shook. Don't forget, you can also get access to our videos, guidebooks, and thyroid programs at www.drbradshook.com. Oh yeah, and don't forget one more thing. We can change the world one person, one family, and one community at a time. Until next time, remember, today is your day, and no one will tell you who you are and what you can be.